The 8th console generation hasn't been the kindest to the stealth genre. Franchises like Splinter Cell have completely skipped the generation, while others like Metal Gear Solid seemingly had their last hurrah, while all around there weren't nearly as many stealth games of the last 6 to 7 years as there once used to be. But that doesn't mean there was nothing to enjoy for fans of the genre. Though the quantity has definitely been lacking, when it comes to quality, there's been no issue whatsoever. Some of the best games this entire generation, in fact, have been stealth titles. And as this generation winds down and we enter into the PS5 and Xbox Series X era, in this feature, we're going to take a look at the best stealth games of the generation, starting with number 15 and counting right down to our favorite stealth title of the generation. ARAGAMI. Fans of the Tenchu games, you don't want to miss this one. ARAGAMI is not flawless, and with a little more polish it could have been a significantly better game, but when it works very well. It's a strictly stealth-oriented game through and through, which is something that old-school stealth fans will appreciate greatly, and it looks beautiful to boot. Developer Linceworks are currently working on a sequel, and if they can take the first game's solid foundation and introduce some smart improvements, they might have a real gem on their hands. Sniper Elite 4. Sniper Elite 4 is probably the best game in its series, which says a lot because developers Rebellion have delivered some great Sniper Elite games in the past. With Sniper Elite 4 though, they managed to strike the perfect balance between its focus on sniping in large open sandboxes and its emergent stealth mechanics. It encourages player choice, it boasts excellent map design, and solid mechanics and AI work together to deliver some solid stealth gameplay. Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima is far from the perfect stealth game, and it has some pretty major issues with things such as its enemy AI. But what it lacks in those areas, it makes up for in the amount of tools it drops at your feet to use in any given scenario. The number of tools and abilities you can make use of in any stealth scenario in Ghost is ridiculous, and that's something that's given even more depth through its progression mechanics, which constantly let you not only unlock new abilities and moves, but also upgrade older ones. On top of that, the game also encourages you to make use of Jin's traversal abilities in smart ways, while solid enemy variety makes sure that you're switching up your tactics regularly as well. Put together, all of these elements ensure that you're constantly using your toolset and arsenal to their fullest, and are allowed to use them in constantly creative ways that make sure that you feel like an absolute badass. Assassin's Creed Unity. Assassin's Creed Unity had a famously rough launch, and it's no secret that the game has a lot of issues. But as far as pure stealth goes, this is the best the Assassin's Creed series has ever been. Not only did it take the social stealth mechanics of the older Assassin's Creed games farther than any other game in the series has done, it also introduced actual player choice, giving players various options in how to infiltrate locations, track down their prey, and even kill their targets. It's a real shame that Ubisoft have decided to more or less drop stealth with Assassin's Creed games, because as Unity shows, they were finally starting to get things just right before that happened. Invisible Ink. Stealth games are already very tactical in nature. You always need to be aware of your surroundings, of how many enemies there are in your vicinity, of how much attention you could attract if you did a certain thing. So it makes sense that Invisible Ink, a game that takes the stealth approach and uses it within the framework of a turn-based tactics game, is an absolute gem. It fuses these two genres together wonderfully, constantly challenging players with unique challenges and objectives, with tight mechanics that all work together wonderfully well. It's a game that succeeds at being a stealth title just as much as it does at being a strategy game. Batman Arkham Knight. Batman Arkham Knight surely has some major elements that have been on the receiving end of a lot of criticism, from its excessive focus on the Batmobile to the character of the Arkham Knight as a whole. But from a gameplay perspective, it is the ultimate refinement of the Arkham formula. It takes the traversal and combat mechanics of its predecessors to its zenith, and it does the same with the stealth mechanics as well. Arkham Knight absolutely nails the feeling of being a predator that strategically takes out its foes one by one while striking fear into the hearts of his enemies. Desperados 3. Mimimi Games nailed the stealth tactics formula with the excellent Shadow Tactics Blades of the Shogun, and with Desperados 3, they very nearly perfected it. Combining the unique abilities of all of the characters with its simple but solid stealth mechanics, as well as the ability to pause the action and set up an entire chain reaction of actions, leads to some truly memorable moments. Desperados 3 is an excellent example of a game constantly exhibiting ingenuity through simplicity. A Plague Tale: Innocence. Looking at A Plague Tale: Innocence, it's hard to believe that this is a game that was developed by a pretty small indie team. Every nook and cranny of this game is a sight to behold. It's got ridiculous production values, visuals that constantly take your breath away, and a surprisingly effective story told through the lens of its two lovable protagonists and the bond that they share with each other. Purely in terms of mechanics, A Plague Tale isn't the most complex stealth game out there, but it keeps finding new ways to use its handful of core mechanics in constantly interesting and unique ways. Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. Building on the excellent immersive sim gameplay of Deus Ex: Human Revolution, Mankind Divided is perhaps one of the best realizations of the genre to this day, at least from a pure gameplay perspective. From the number of options you have and how to tackle any situation, to the excellent progression that lets you build up your abilities to suit your particular playstyle, to the excellent stealth mechanics that make you feel like a badass super agent. The game's ending leaves a sour taste in the mouth, sure, but we really hope Square Enix doesn't leave Deus Ex on ice forever, because when this series is at its best, there's nothing else quite like it. Alien Isolation. Horror games stick out in your memory the most when they find ways to make you feel truly vulnerable, and that's something that Alien Isolation does more than most other games. In fact, it does it almost constantly. The Xenomorph is probably one of the most terrifying enemies we've ever come across in a game, and having to hide from it and staying on the move to find new hiding places makes for some of the best, most intense stealth gameplay you will ever experience. Hitman 2016. After a couple of less than stellar entries in the series, in 2016, developers IO Interactive decided to reboot the Hitman series and deliver the kind of game that the fans of the series had been asking for, one where anything was possible. We hear a lot about emergent, systemic stealth gameplay these days, but it's hard to find a game that does it as well as the Hitman series. The sheer number of options at your disposal within every single objective in the game is simply staggering. And the more you experiment, the more the game rewards you, by reacting to your actions in constantly surprising and delightful ways. Dishonored 2. Dishonored was already a stunning stealth game when it came out, but Dishonored 2 did the impossible and pretty much rendered its predecessor useless thanks to how good it was. In Dishonored 2, everything is about options. The excellent level design lets you get to your objective however you want. The large number of abilities at your disposal let you choose how to deal with your enemies. The progression allows you to choose whether you want to be completely lethal, completely non-lethal, or somewhere in between. Every mission in Dishonored 2 is an unforgettable scenario thanks purely to its sheer mechanical strength. The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us Part 2 story is clearly a divisive one to say the least, but while we can argue about the narrative merits and demerits for hours on end, one area where the game is an unequivocal success is the gameplay department, which is surprising for a Naughty Dog game in 2020. The Last of Us Part 2 is, quite simply, one of the best linear stealth games we've ever played. Enemy AI is more than competitive. Ellie's expanded moveset allows her to be more nimble and mobile, and every single environment in the game is designed to leverage that expanded moveset as much as possible. Every encounter is scrappy, intense, and an absolute rush of adrenaline. The Last of Us Part 2 nails its stealth gameplay, and we're hoping to see Naughty Dog continue to put gameplay front and center as they did here with their future projects as well. Hitman 2. 2016's Hitman reboot was an excellent way to bring the series back on track, but with its sequel, IO Interactive took it to completely new heights. Hitman 2 is, simply put, the ultimate realization of the Hitman formula. Like its predecessor, it is the zenith of emergent stealth gameplay, and it builds on the sublime reactive gameplay and emergent mechanics of the 2016 reboot with improvements of its own. There's also the fact that Hitman 2 has some of the best designed and most immersive levels we've ever seen in any game, even outside of the stealth genre. If this is the trajectory IO Interactive are going to keep heading in with Hitman 3, they may very well deliver yet another masterpiece in the stealth genre, just as they did with Hitman 2. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Metal Gear Solid 5 has a lot of issues. Its narrative is a frustrating experience for fans of the series. Its second half is an unfinished mess that recycles older missions. Its final story revelations and twists are controversial. That's just the tip of the iceberg. But purely as a stealth game, Metal Gear Solid 5 is a blissful experience. It is one of the best examples of emergent gameplay we've seen to date. The way it encourages players to use the tools at their disposal to creatively come up with solutions to problems never gets old, even after hundreds of hours of gameplay. And the game's excellent AI makes sure that every stealth encounter is a thrilling one. Metal Gear Solid 5 may not be a very good Metal Gear game, but it is easily the best stealth game ever made. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.